Right. So, Jessica Vassallo, you're with me today. Thank you so much for being here on the Turning Points group. This is Thursday Therapies, and we're doing hypnotherapy. And so who better than a friend, a local friend, to talk to us about this wonderful therapy. So we're just going to go through a few things about, maybe perhaps start with the background. Why hypnotherapy for you? How did you come to it? That kind of stuff.
Okay, well, thank you for having me here, first of all.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so my actual background for the last 25 years has been marketing and events management. And I was raised a military brat. My father was a Royal Marine. He met my mother in Malta and dragged us back kicking and screaming to England.
Sunny Exmouth.
Yes, lovely Exmouth, as it happens. And yeah, so I kind of stumbled into marketing and events management, and then stumbled into a job working for the Royal Marines Charitable Trust Fund. Mm-hmm. And I was in my office one day. We were helping guys who had been medically discharged to link them up with people in business that could offer them opportunities, having come to a point in their life where they needed a new career. Mm-hmm. So I was organising charity fundraising events in London and in Lympstone.
Okay.
And one day this man sort of sauntered into my office and spent a good few hours there, and he was talking to me about his experience of post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
Whereby he would manage to somehow turn up for work in the morning, sign in, and then the next thing find himself walking his dog on the cliffs and just didn't know how he had got there.
Wow.
And we kind of, we connected, you know, I really enjoyed our conversation, and I discovered that he was having coaching, a form of coaching called neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes.
And I then went on to discover more about neuro-linguistic programming. I thought, what is this thing that completely changes people's lives? So we're here talking about hypnotherapy, but neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy are very closely linked. Yes. So the co-founder of NLP, Dr. Richard Bandler, who I actually trained with him and about 200 other people in London to complete my master NLP practitioner course. But he uses hypnotherapy a lot and has done more and more, you know, in
and they're
recent
very,
years.
very closely linked, as you say.
They are, yes. Yeah, they are. So So anyway, I embarked on this journey. I've sought out and trained with the best that I can find in the world. People who are rock stars in the hypnotherapy world, like Freddie Jacquin.
Yeah,
he's adorable, and his son Anthony. I've trained with Melissa Tears, who is from New York and is a well-known neuroscientist. Mm-hmm. She actually coaches psychotherapists in New York, which is a big win for us NLPers.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, lots and lots of other people. A man called James Carlos from Melbourne, who I trained with last October in Edinburgh. So I've always wanted to train with the best, bring back the knowledge to Devon, and share my knowledge with the community. So it's always my passion, and it's my biggest challenge in business, to be able to reach people, to find people to talk about this, and to just open up people's perspectives on how they can make life a little bit sweeter.
I mean, what does the hypnotherapy world look like today? Do you think people are maybe resistant to it, or is it still a mystery to them? Or do you think it's maybe something to do with feeling a little bit worried or ashamed in some way that they've had to go to someone such as yourself to help them organize their thoughts, organize their lives? Is that how it looks to you?
I always celebrate. I'm always so excited when I hear from people, because it's a brave move. You know, we're so accustomed to dusting ourselves off and getting on with it. You know, and it's so important to embrace self-care. It's so important to be able to recognize that feeling and be able to pull it out, draw it out, have a look at it, question, what is that? You know, I always come from a place of being curious and being creative, but it's that initial step, isn't it? That trust to reach out to somebody like me.
So working with the Marines, some of the most courageous people, you know, we would think, and yet, you know, courage isn't that really, is it? It's something else. It can be anybody in the streets can be courageous and say, look, is that what you're saying? I'm not struggling. Sorry, I'm not coping here. I need help. Do you find people are still struggling to do that?
Yes, yeah, there's still, it's easier. I've seen a massive culture shift since I started this journey 6 years ago.
Yeah.
People are more open to talking about mind health, mental health, mind fitness, you know, but whereas we used to talk about mental illness, and that was a term that was a dirty word that was hidden, it almost feels like mental health has become that dirty word, you know, whereas mental health to me is a good thing.
It's a promotion, isn't it?
Yeah, to have mental health and to also to be able to be comfortable with emotions, because you know, feeling anxious is also looked down upon, but we all feel anxious at times.
In 2020 is a classic case, isn't it? Have you seen the anxiety levels increase in your practice, or generally speaking, have you seen that?
Yes, throughout all ages. I think a challenge that we have in our society, and something that I find, is that I am a private practice, you know, and I ask people to invest in their own time as well as the financial investment and that commitment to make change. But we do live in a society where there's a sense of entitlement because we have an NHS service.
Yeah.
You know, but it can be so difficult to reach that service, and they do a fantastic job within the limitations of what they can offer. So it's been able to explain to people how much more I can offer, you know, get over that fear of, oh my goodness, am I going to be seeing this person for the next 30 years of my life, and explain actually what I've learned are rapid change techniques that will teach people an understanding of themselves, because they don't want to pay me to be with them 24/7. They are with themselves 24/7. So I always, from the very beginning, enable people to feel empowered, that they have this new understanding, they have a new perspective, to be able to stand outside of themselves and be a witness to their experience, to know that they have a choice to listen to that voice or to brush it off.
And then with the NHS in the UK, I mean, some of the therapies that we've talked about, CBT particularly, seems to be a standard idea for the National Health Service. They kind of direct you in that way. Are you saying that maybe they could perhaps expand into the private sector? Is there any link between the two?
There's a fantastic GP called Dr. To Wong, who's based in Dawlish, and he and his colleague have set up the Integrative Health Convention, which has been running for the last 3 years in London, which is bringing the medical profession and complementary therapies together and just demonstrating how well they can work together. And he's done so much for that. It's really supported by the College of Medicine as well, which I'm a member of. I think, for me, it is a case of be careful what you wish for, in the sense that I know I work to a code of ethics. I know that I belong to professional bodies that will monitor my work. But by my disciplines being endorsed by the NHS, that's when you start to get into that territory of having fixed and rigid programs. And I very much, because they want to be able to qualitatively and quantitatively measure the success of each program and the investment that they're having in each person. Whereas I can work more fluidly with people. I work with the person as they're presenting in front of me at each session. So I recently had an experience with a client who was actually a veteran of the Falklands.
Yes.
And he had been through a course of therapy with through the NHS. And he got to the end and didn't feel any further improvements. I mean, when he came to see me, his first visit lasted all of 2 minutes. I had to open all the doors, all the windows, because he just wanted to escape.
Real stuff, yeah.
Really. And this was a man who was retired. The Falklands was like 1982.
Yeah.
And he was still suffering from post-traumatic stress. And he got to the end of the program with the NHS and was told, we can't do anything more for you now.
Right.
Where does a person go with that?
It's like falling off a cliff, isn't it, I suppose? You expect to get somewhere. And I suppose it's probably not the NHS's fault. And again, I totally agree with you. They do an amazing job with the limitations that are provided, financial implications, all of that. And I totally love the idea of integrating the medical side and the holistic side. Some of the therapies that we've talked about on this group, EMDR, NLP, CBT, DBT, all of those things have a value that I think people can dip into. So it's a nice, I suppose you call it, what is a cognitive interweave. You can use different methodologies. Do you bring some of your NLP master practitioner work into, are they just inextricably linked?
Well, the way I work with it is that for information gathering, getting to know the client is asking certain sets of questions and using clean language that will draw out the words that will help them see how they are seeing the world. Yeah. So the answers aren't for me, it's how they see the map of their world. And therefore, the way that they are thinking is affecting how they feel, and how they feel affecting how they're behaving. And by drawing out that experience, drawing out that knowledge, we're able then to say, okay, well, where do you want to be? How does that look? To really come up with seeds of suggestion that can be embedded in the unconscious mind so that change becomes easier. Right. Because if I explain it to you this way, so when we're born, we're a blank canvas. We know nothing. Let's just put it that way. You know, past life regression people might know that we may have an idea of which family we're coming into.
Poetic license,
yes. What our intention is in the world. But for argument's sake, if we frame it this way. So in this world, in this lifetime, we start to have a picture of build stories and beliefs around how the world is. And we're influenced by those significant people around us at a time in our life when our mind is open, it's in the learning stage, and we soak up that information like sponges. And then we start to get older and our minds become fixed and focused. And that's what hypnosis is. We're all hypnotists.
Yes.
It's like a famous line in the Greatest Showman. There's a song called Come Alive. And it says, we stumble in a daze. Yes. Yeah, we often stumble through life in a daze, in hypnosis, in trances, saying, this is like this is like that, and this means this. And we hurtle down those trance tunnels, and we're often reacting in situations that our unconscious mind has already decided 7 seconds before our conscious mind is aware of what's happening, how we're going to behave. Because we're fixed and programmed, conditioned into seeing the world in that way. And then sometimes events happen, things happen, we grow in our life, and we might come up with situations like becoming parents for the first time, you know, and we could look back, we look into our past for references of how to be in that situation. But if, you know, if there's an example where our experience of parenting wasn't a good one, then where do we draw upon our knowledge to be the parent that we want to be without being able to step away from that situation and evaluate it and really listen into who we are and how we want to be as parents?
So we're using past reference, no matter where it's drawn from, as a framework for the current behaviour that we're struggling with. And sometimes I suppose there isn't a good fit.
No, that's right. And more often we're not awake to it. We feel something isn't right, and we can feel something isn't right, and we try to bury that feeling with chocolate or shopping or the next holiday or the next dopamine rush that comes from an instant pleasure, an instant gratification.
Yeah.
But at the core of it, we don't often know, without support from somebody else's perspective, where that feeling is coming from, where that problem is originating. And it comes from the beliefs that we have, the stories about how the world should be.
I mean, it's interesting you talk about dopamine and perhaps the reward center of the brain, whereby I'm dealing with a 13 and a 12-year-old gaming son at the moment. And in terms of addiction, which we've also spoken about in this group, you could say that they're addicted to their gaming, but we're also, I suppose, addicted to set behaviors too. So when something comes up, we try and, I suppose, handle it in the best way we can, given the frame of reference that we have. Do you then come in and say, okay, well, how's that working for you? Obviously, you're here with me, so you're struggling with it. Do you then present a new idea, a new perception? How do you access it for them and empower them to change that behavior?
Well, we begin by saying, you are the captain of your ship. You're here because you want to make a change. You recognize that something isn't working for you. So what we do is, as the captain of their ship, that's the conscious part of our mind. What we want to do is talk to the mutinous crew.
Yes.
Yeah. So the crew is in our unconscious mind, is that program, that part of us that believes it's doing a good thing for us. And it's powerful. So we don't want to get rid of something that's powerful. What we want to do is say to it, thank you very much for what you have been doing. I know that you're a part of me that loves me and is looking out for me. And you think that that thing is doing a good thing for me, but actually it isn't. So why don't we do this instead?
Yeah.
And we ask the creative mind to come up with 6 new behaviors that will still satisfy the good reasons that part has, but will be healthier and more beneficial to that person. So what the crew says, yeah, I'll work with you. You're part of me. We're mates. So instead of having that friction between the two, that conflict, it agrees to work with it, so that the captain and the crew move together more powerfully in a collaborative way.
Rather than a kind of a dissonance, I suppose we could call it, where I've been on a ship myself, ex-military, as you may know, and I know what the mutinous crew are up to while the captain is beautifully, blissfully steering away into the moonlight. But I think also it's really interesting that you make that differentiation between the conscious mind and the subconscious. And I think, could you talk more towards that idea that this is the essence of where all our behaviors are, our patterns are here, and it's only a small amount of everything percentages, I suppose, of the conscious mind that runs our day. It's but in the background, all of this other stuff is going on, and that ultimately makes us struggle, I think, if I get that right.
Yeah, well, that's the part where we are in hypnosis. So for anyone listening who drives, how often have you had that experience of driving to a destination and thinking, how did I get here? Yeah. So our unconscious mind has learnt, it's been through the learning stages, and it has learned how to do that thing without being aware of doing it, And that's often what we do. We learn how to be in a certain situation, and we create like a blueprint in our mind where the neurons have fired together and wired together. And we create those programs. A typical stimulus response is it's cold outside, so we shiver.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We're not aware of ourselves telling ourselves it's cold outside, I should shiver. It just happens.
Mm.
Yet we blink and we breathe without thinking about it. Now, they're really useful programs, especially the breathing part, but we're not aware of it. But what happens is we will have certain experiences and events in our life where our mind will create a connection to our body and create that blueprint and say, this is like this. Yeah. Or this is like that. But it's all outside of our conscious awareness. We're not aware of it. The mutinous crew is running that program, thinking, if I shiver, I'll keep the body warm. Yeah. If I breathe, I'll keep the body breathing. If I panic, if I go into a state of panic, that's going to protect me from harm. It's going to release that cortisol in my body. It's going to help me flee from the situation. Yeah. But as we know, anxiety is a powerful part of us that is part of our amygdala that protects us from danger. But often in modern world now, dangers can be in the form of a bossy boss or you know, rather than a physical danger.
And I suppose there's a negativity bias, isn't there? I think it was Mel Robbins spoke about the idea that we are biologically wired to be averse to doing something unfamiliar. Joe Dispenza talks about it, as you know, dipping your toe into this unfamiliar river. Do you talk about that in your practice to people as you try and sort of bring them to the idea that they can change, or to the idea that the unfamiliar isn't so terrible?
Well, I'm going to demonstrate.
Oh, fantastic.
So, I would like you to just put your hands together like this, as you naturally would.
Yeah.
Okay, how does that feel?
Comfortable.
Good. Now I would like you to move your fingers and thumb up one notch. Like that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah.
And how does that feel in comparison?
Oh, no. It's a very strange feeling, yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could see. You showed me in your expression and your...
Yes, absolutely.
So now, I would like you to just keep going to what was comfortable and what's uncomfortable. Just keep switching your fingers over.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, at first, when we make a change, it was really uncomfortable. Yeah. So we consciously go through programs. We consciously go ask the client, what is important to you in your life? How much time are you spending on that thing that is really important to you? You know, where can we make a change? Now you consciously make that change. You create daily habits. You have visualizations, self-hypnosis, where you just take a breath, go inward to yourself, and maybe repeat a positive affirmation or two. And you make those changes constantly. Now, the more often you make that change, the more comfortable it gets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice. And that's the simplicity, that's the beauty of some of these, shall we call them alternative therapies? I don't know, but this is the simplicity of it, I think, and the way that, you know, that this group works, and as you're aware, it's that knowledge base. Do you think people are worried about change? Do you think they, you know, it's not just the PTSD side. It could be, as you say, shopping, gambling, weight loss, relationships. Do you think they're worried about that change element of it, and being scared to make that step?
Definitely. There's the element of being fearing the unknown, and also that these things become so huge, so overwhelming, that they either believe that they just have to live with it, or that it is such a big problem that it will take years to fix. So many people say to me, I'm a lost cause, you know, can you help me? So it's overcoming that belief that change has to be difficult. And one of the things that I share with people is like, well, when did this begin? You know, because you haven't always been like this. Therefore, you're not having to learn to be someone new. These are skills that you already have. You know, we're getting to the heart of the diamond that is inside. You know, that through events and experiences and ideas about the world, has just put a dusting of dust and dirt and debris is covering that diamond. And all we need to do is swish that dust and debris away to let that person shine from the inside out.
Wow, lovely, lovely. I mean, there's so much good information out there as well. You know, you talked about, I think, this, is it the story that we tell ourselves when we're in those particular behaviors? And there's an almost, not a giving up, but people put up with an awful lot. I think there's a lot of people walking around, you can see them around the town with, it appears to be the weight of the world on their shoulders. And I think there's an option for them. I think in Turning Points, I posted yesterday, this idea of a compass, this is where Turning Points came from. It could be just a different path. Do you find success in that with hypnotherapy? Do you find people not needing to come back, say, for example, you show them an idea or a concept and away they go, and you know, that's a success, isn't it, really?
Indeed, it's terrible for business, Simon.
I suppose it is, yeah. It's I think Kelly Brogan once said that if she had people in her office all the time, she'd consider it a failure. But I think it's getting this message out, isn't it, Jess, really, that I think these kind of groups are useful for, and drawing people in from all walks of life, not, as we say, just the veterans, but the mom who's struggling with the children, or the father who's just been made redundant. It's very accessible, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's being able to get past the beliefs that are already there that stop people coming forward. Like, for example, an entrepreneurial woman who is a mother of 3 children, who says, well, what more can I do? I only have 24/7. I don't have any more time. Because often people think in order to make a change, they need to do more. When actually, particularly for high achievers, I actually say to them, go away and do nothing. I don't want you to do anything.
Yeah,
you know?
No homework.
Yeah, so it's being able to say, well, actually, you're fine. You're not broken. You just want some tweaks, you know? So if that person was like a twig floating down a river and they've just got caught between 2 rocks, I'm just going to give them a little nudge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And it can just be the mindset shift can make such a huge difference and have such a positive ripple effect on a person's life. So like this woman who just wasn't feeling right, was feeling out of sorts. Through the questioning before the hypnosis, we identified she just wanted me back. Yeah, she did. And when we drilled down to that me was her 21-year-old spontaneous self that could just do anything she wanted at a whim, compared to a mother and an entrepreneur who had to be so organized throughout her week in order to keep the plate spinning. So we looked at what was important to her. We looked at her working week, you know, and all the things that were important to her fitted into that week. And then on a Saturday, we scheduled in spontaneity.
Right. Bit of fun, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an opportunity.
Nothing was organised, you know. They could do what they wanted, and that part of her, that mutinous crew part, was satisfied because it thought that was lost forever. Right. But now it knows it's going to come around on a Saturday.
Yeah, and it is that opening that Pandora's box for people where it's always there, isn't it? I think we pack stuff down all the time. This is my belief, and in packing stuff down, it's going to create, as Gabor Mate talks about, illness. And I think I was speaking to my GP only a couple of weeks ago, who said that the next pandemic is going to be mental health. if it's not already here. And I think, you know, people shouldn't be worried about accessing therapies with yourself or many other practitioners in different fields. It's not a shame thing, as we said at the very beginning. It's more of a courageous step towards self-care. I mean, how can people get hold of you, Jess? I mean, do you have a website? Is there some way that they can get hold of you?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I do have a website. So it's jessicavassallo.com.
Right, okay.
And I also have an offer. I've been in the recording studio and I've recorded 4 MP3s. The first one is going to be available very soon. So it's about the calming the mind and building resilience. The idea that from the inside out, we can be more responsive to what's going on around us rather than feeling that it's happening to us. So that will be available. So anyone that wants a copy can email me at jess@jessicavassallo.com.
Fantastic.
I also have a current COVID-friendly offer on my services, because I know lots of people's businesses have been affected recently.
Yes.
So to make it more accessible, I've got reduced rates, which will be available to see on my website. So,
fabulous.
Yeah.
Jess, thank you so much for being here. It's been really lovely. I know it's been a bit brief. And I know you're a very busy lady, and I know the people watching when we post this and it goes up on the group will love hearing about your take on hypnotherapy, and sort of being able to contact you as well, because I think the key to some of this is it's not for the upper echelons of society. Hypnotherapy, I think, is available to anybody really who's courageous enough to step forward and say, hey, do you know what, I'm struggling here, what about it? And it's not a lengthy process, I suppose. Would you agree? Is it?
No, on average I see clients for 3 sessions before they've got what they needed from it.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Really enjoyed speaking to you, Jess, and any contributions that you want to make to the page or to the group, then please go right ahead. I'm sure people will love seeing you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you, Simon. Lovely to see you.
All right, we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.